welcome back to the Board Game Specialist. I am Melanie.
And I'm Carla.
And we are on episode 92. And this week we're doing our top 9 games from the games that were published between the year 2000 and 2005. Now, before we get into that, I just want to mention we do have a sponsor, which is Games and Couples. Games and Couple is part of Oshrat Online Counseling Services. And what they do is they concentrate on couple counseling utilizing the Goffman principles. And one way that they've discovered was a great way of putting those into practice was actually through gameplay and specifically co-op games. So there's a lot of games that gets involved in their couple counseling, and I think that's just amazing. So be sure to check the links below. We'll make sure we add those to this. Now, Carla, how was this list for you?
It was actually pretty easy because when I went through all the lists that I had or had played from there, I think it was 20 games maybe I had to choose from. So
so it's not too bad, yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Because when did you seriously get in the hobby?
Ish. Around there.
Okay.
When I kind of started, but I didn't really get to know that it was actually like an actual hobby. I started finding these games. I can't even remember how, and then played some. And then I got to a cafe, I think a couple of years later, and then got really into it. What about you?
Nice. I think it was around 2017 for me, when I was discovered my first, modern board games. So yeah, these are. But with them, I've liked to. Throughout my board gaming career, we'll call it a career. But when I got deeper into the hobby, I really enjoyed learning and discovering the older gems, right? Yeah. So I've played quite a bit, but I wasn't around I wasn't in the partaking when they were being published, right?
Yeah, I just remember because actually one of the games is on this list, and I could see a visual of me having it set up when my daughter was around 15. And so that's why I'm like, okay, so if I had this game then, I had to have started the hobby on my own.
That's a good way of, I was like, how old were my kids? Or were they walking, crawling, or in school?
She was in grade 9, I remember. Because I remember the friends that were at the house while I was playing this game set up. So that's how I remember.
That's good. Yeah, so now before we talk about our list, we're going to talk about some games we've played lately. Now, both of us attended housewarming party / board game day, which was tons of fun. Our friend bought a new house, got it all kind of renovated and ready to go, and then we had a big board game day there, which was neat. We went kind of sneaked around her board game room and then look at all the games on the shelf. Which was funny. She has a shelf that's almost empty because it's dedicated to her workout equipment.
Oh, we'll be sneaking games in there.
I was like, put the games in there. She's like, no. And then I was like, what? But you got shelves.
Yeah. Because me and Ashley went and helped her set up her games. And so we did all the games, and she has a ton of puzzles too.
Nice, yeah.
Set those up. And then there's this other shelf. We're like, oh, you got a whole shelf full of games, or empty for games. She's like, oh no, that's workout equipment. I'm like, no. You need one shelf for workout equipment. You can use all these for.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. And then I'm in the opposite problem here. I have officially run out of shelf. I have, but I've just bought a bunch.
In and out, one in, one out.
No, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds too reasonable.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm definitely close to that point, but I keep getting rid of some.
I don't have front-facing games yet, so I could always do that.
That whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's just when you start doing that, you don't see a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true. You always have to pull them off. They just kind of look nice, but I did empty a few shelves of some of my mystery games, but I have a spare
more coming
closet now that I have put those. So because they don't really they're not pretty looking, they're in cardboard or something, so they don't need to be displayed on my shelf.
Right.
So now I have a little bit of room, but I also have a couple coming, so I have a pile of games I'm gonna sell soon. But I want to add a few more.
Yeah, I also had like a bunch of games, the cash flow games that I had from when I was doing cash flow nights for the board game or the real estate and stock investing. And my friend Keith was over yesterday, and I gave it to him so he'd have a bunch of components. I was like, here, take these so you can use them for components for his prototype. And then so I did like clear up like a section that was able to put some of the games on there. Nice. So I have less on the pile, but.
Awesome. And I see some empty space behind you. You could fit some.
Yeah, I do need to. I just don't put a lot of games in my office here because I don't play here. But I could definitely tuck more in behind me here.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, let's get started with what you've played lately.
Well, one of the games at that game day, that I think it was the first one we played, it was Robinson Crusoe. So I have had found from a guy in Quebec because the collector's edition was coming out. It was kickstarted way back in 2021 and it was just being fulfilled. So I put a search out and I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I guess I wasn't really into Kickstarter at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But so I put a thing out on our like one of our game pages on Facebook that I was looking for that, and somebody wrote back on there as a comment. They're like, that game hasn't what's it called when the fulfilled yet with Kickstarter. And I'm like, oh, I know, but some people will regret buying it, especially since it's so long. And sure enough, some guy in Quebec, he messaged me. He's like, I have it coming and I'll sell it. So I had ordered it, and then Ashley had ordered one from somewhere as well, and hers came first, so she brought it and we played it, and it's just beautiful. It comes with this beautiful player mat, which was one of the issues from the game for me because my game board actually snapped. So one whole piece was off. I mean, it really doesn't affect gameplay because you just as long as it's sitting there, it's fine, but still annoying. So but the game board fits everything on it.
Nice.
All the cards. There's like a nice little treasure book, and it's like a spiral bound book with all the different scenarios in it, and then all like the added ones over the years and so on. But it's just gorgeous, this book. And there's a spot for that on the player mat too. And then it has these beautiful minis, and I got the Sundrop version, which is the only ones I'm going to get from now on. I can't stand the just plain gray minis. I can't stand them. I've painted a few of mine, and by painting, I paint them one color and then I shade them. I am not a painter. I have no patience to sit and paint little tiny things on them. So from now on, I will not be buying gray minis. The game comes with it. I'm going to maybe not have to get it.
Oh, you're going to consider like maybe not. Whoa.
Yeah, you can order the Sundrop because the Sundrop versions, they're like shaded and they just look awesome. They're just one color, but
nice. Which is all I want, really. It's just so it's not gray and dull looking, right?
The reason I don't like the plain gray, it's not because I'm like snobby about it. It's I can't tell them all apart. Like in
they don't look the same.
Destinies, they're all so tiny.
Right.
It's like, oh my god, now which person's coming out? They all look so like the same. So once they're shaded, you can see all the details and they're easy to pick out. So that's my problem. But
no, that's fair for sure.
Yeah, but the game is awesome because it also has a mini for the Palisades. So you have to build up your Palisades, you have to build up your roof because you're on a desert island and you're trying to like make shelter for yourself, but it comes in like levels, so it's like actually 3D and it's so cool. It what else does it come with that is different? I mean, it comes with all the cards and everything you could possibly imagine. I think there's still one expansion that it doesn't really have, but another thing is the player boards, they are dual layered so that
nice.
You have like a heart tracker and that thing gets knocked around so often, but now that they're dual layered, they have like slots so they'll stick in there. It's awesome. So we played a scenario. We played, what was it again? Some sort of not futuristic, but like I can't remember. It was sort of like a not a Cthulhu, but something kind of to that effect. I'll have to look it up when you talk about your games, but it was really neat because we had to like basically find gold, which is like all these scenarios, they're completely different and they all play completely different, which is nice because then it gives you a variety. But in order to do that, we had to keep hunting because every time we hunt, we would somehow find gold. And it was hard to get the animals in the deck because every time you explore, that's when you get animals in the deck. And once we explored everything, then we couldn't get more animals in. So we had to rely on our soldier having a whole bunch of tokens so that she could pull animals out of the deck, but it didn't work. And so we failed, but that's okay. Most times in Robinson Crusoe, it's probably a good 75% that, and that's what makes it so interesting. But I have since got my copy, and it is beautiful. I love it.
Nice.
Get it set up and play. But another one that I've been playing, and it's a love-hate, this game. Actually, we played it at the that game day as well. You didn't play this one. It was me, Ashley, and Kayla playing it. And it is called The Key. And there's like a series of games. This one is the Murder in Oakdale, I think. And so I played this like a few weeks ago with just 2 players, and we tried it first and it was very frustrating. We couldn't do it, and then we're like, okay, let's try it again. We did it, and then I got it, and then the third time I got it really fast. And so how this game works is you have all these clues, and they are all face down in a big pile, just mushed up, like just spread out in the middle of the table. And then you have these screens in front of you, and you're just trying to get all this information. And it's a real-time game, so you're all just working at the same time, and you'll grab a card from the middle and you'll look at it and you'll kind of record that information. Sometimes you'll grab a card and it's literally the exact information you got, but in a different way. Now, these cards have values on them. They either have a 2 or a 4. So obviously the 4 will give you a little bit better information, whereas the 2 is a little bit vague. And so they all have on the backs of them these colored squares. So you have about 12 different scenarios, I guess, basically in the box. And so you choose one of those colors, and then you will pick cards with that color on it. So some cards will have like 4 different colors, some will have 6, some will have 2. But how they made this game, I don't know, because it's so cool. So you'll pick out these cards. Say we're doing yellow, I have to only grab yellow cards, and you'll grab them and you'll kind of record this information. And what you're trying to do is find out, there's 3 different murders. You're trying to find out who did it, where they did it, with what, and with what golf cart. So you have like these 3 little squares of all those different things. And as you go through this information, you'll be like, okay, well, now I know it wasn't the lady. There's a guy and a young boy, well, not young, a teenage boy and a girl. And you're like, okay, now I figured out this lady did it at this time specific. So I know she's in the middle. So now the 2 guys did each of the other ones. Now I have to figure out which one did which.
Oh, okay.
And then, and the clues, how they are, it's kind of neat because everybody has this pamphlet. And so I might get a clue that has like a DNA check. And all it is this little circle with striped colors. And then you look in your pamphlet, and each person has like a DNA strip, and they have all these different colors in a big strip, and you have to try and match that to it. And then once you match it, you know, okay, that's that person's DNA. And so the card might have said like this DNA and this weapon. So now you know it's this person with this weapon. I just don't know where, when, and how, kind of thing. Or with what golf cart. You might have another thing that will show where this person was at a specific time. And then on the back of the pamphlet, you have this map, and it shows all these locations and the time it will take to get to each spot. So if you're like, okay, this guy was here at this time, well, there's no way he could have made it to this spot for the murder or this spot for the murder. And there's only 3 spots it could be. So you're deducing that. There's another one where it shows, it'll be like a little puzzle. It'll say something like the license plate on the golf cart, the numbers all can never add up to so-and-so, or multiply the numbers and like it's just all these different types of puzzles. There's another one with like this watch that it's like a smashed watch, and it shows these 3 watches in your pamphlet, and you have to match it to the time of one of those.
Okay.
And it's tricky, but it's really neat. So you just go on and you do this until you're like, okay, I've got all my 3 things down, and then you look for the combination of those, and then you go to the box and you grab the key. It's a little wooden key, and there's this little punch outs with a whole bunch of different numbers, which are codes, and then you'll kind of stick the key in one of the codes, and then you'll flip the board over, and if the color matches, you're correct.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat. And then if you say at the same time we figured it out at the same time, then you count up your card totals, and whoever used the least amount of clues wins. Well, that day, I don't know what I was doing, but I did something totally wrong, and I was completely off. So we played one game, and I looked at the code. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. I looked, there's no number, anything remotely like that on the key check.
Oops.
So I'm like, okay, I'll go back and try it again, and couldn't get it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to waste everyone's time. And then we played it one more time, and same thing. I'm like, what am I doing here? I just played this, and I like aced it. So the next day I went home, or the next day I was home, and it was Sunday. So I'm like, I'm going to figure this one out again, because I don't know what I was doing wrong. So I played it like 4 times to make sure that I could still do it, because I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. And I could do it. So I don't know what happened that other day. But
it's under pressure.
It's a neat game, but it can be frustrating, because I think if you get off one tangent, it can really take you completely off, and then you're off. But
now, is this like a one time you figure it out, it's done game?
Well, it is, but like, so there's maybe 10, like I said, 10 or 12, but you wouldn't really remember, say 2 weeks go by, you wouldn't remember where that yellow key went in, and you won't remember any of the information for it. So
see, having bad memory pays off sometimes.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think even someone with a good memory, if they went through all of those scenarios, unless they went the next day and did it again.
Right.
But I really think that it's...
Oh, that'd be cool then, yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. It's a cool
game. It sounds neat.
Yeah. And they have a whole bunch in the series. They had like an easier version. This one was medium, and they have a harder one, which I have. But until I really master this one,
I go to the hard one. Yeah. Makes sense for sure. Well, that's cool. That sounds really neat.
Yeah. What about you?
Perfect. So, well, yes, I was at that game day. We played lots of fun games then. And then I left a little bit earlier than everybody else, but then I had a chance to go and have supper with my son Patrick, so that was good. But then yesterday I had a game day here. My friend Justin, who's about to move, so he's moving overseas. He's going to Japan. So he's downsizing his collection to one suitcase. And it's just heartbreaking for me. I think I'm having a harder time with it than he is. But so he was down, and my friend Keith was down. So we ended up playing a few games, and we're like, hey, Justin, what do you want to play before you get rid of? So we played a couple of games. And one of them was Babylonia. So this is a Reiner Knizia game, and it's one that I had purchased actually from Justin because he had 2 copies. And he's like, well, I'm not going to be able to take this. I'd like to try it. So I was like, okay. And so I had watched a tutorial. It's a very simple game to play. So it's not hard to learn, and it's not hard to teach. But it's one of those strategic game where what you do matters, right? So you have this map, and on the map you have like these little... You'll have like 4 or 5, depending on the number of players, these like little wooden pyramids that goes into different locations. And then you have the city tiles, and each city location gets a tile. And some of them will have symbol on it. There's a potential of 1, 2, 3 symbols. And some of the city tile will actually have cropland, and those will score differently as well. And you have these wooden tokens of your color, and the token will either have a farmer on it or one of the 3 nobles that's available. So one's like a star, one's like a statue head or something, and the other one's like a vase. And then you're gonna place these things down, trying to connect from city to city because, and from these pyramid things as well, because everything you play can potentially score. Once a city is completely surrounded, you get to score that city. And you will score the symbol that are on that city with every tile that you have connected to the city. So not necessarily touching the city, but you need to have one of your tile touching that city when that scores, and as well as any tile that touches that tile in some fashion with your color. So you're trying to create clusters as much as possible so that when that city scores, you can kind of go through your whole cluster, count all of those symbols that are on the tiles from that cluster, and they will score 2 points each. That was like my first mistake, because when I played this game, I started in like the bottom corner, and so I kept getting blocked out of creating clusters upwards into the rest of the map, while Justin had kind of started spreading out in the middle, so everything he had touched each other. So he'd be like, hey, I'm scoring this city, and that's 22 points, and here's like, okay, well, I'm getting 2. So I did not win. Mistakes were made, and then you have like your farmers that you can put out as well, and then if you put them on top of a cropland as well, you get to score that cropland. Some of them just have a straightforward point, 6 points, 5 points, 7 points, and then some will have like a symbol, and it's actually a square, which means the city, and then you would score all the city tiles that have been collected so far. You would score that many points for yourself. But then every time somebody gains the city, because when you score the city, whoever has the most tiles surrounding it takes that city and puts it in front of them, and then everybody scores at that point the city they had in front of them. So at first I only had like 2 cities. I would score 2, and Justin had 5, so he would score 5 every time. I'm like, okay, I need to bump this up a bit. And then you had like with the pyramids, if you placed a token next to a pyramid, you get to count all the pyramids that you have a token touching. You get to count that many points. So if you had spread out, when there were 3-player game, there was 4 pyramids. So if you had spread out and you were touching all 4 pyramids, every time you would add to the surrounding of the pyramid, then you would score 4 points, and then another 4 points, and so on. So it's kind of tallied up pretty quickly. And then if you ever surrounded the pyramid, whoever had the majority there would get to pick a special ability that they would then be able to activate as well. Like it was just so neat and puzzly. Like it's very simple. You place a tile onto the board. It's so simple. But it really matters of where you place it, how you connect everything. Like it's very strategic that way. I really, really enjoy that one, and that was Babylonia. Then, yeah, it was so good.
Was it 2 players you just played with? Like just
we played 3.
3, okay.
Yeah, we were 3 players when we ended up playing it, and I think it plays 2 to 4. But probably. And then the big wooden tokens, and like it's a pretty game. It's really cool. And then me and Keith, we played a 2-player game of Mexica because we're waiting for Justin to arrive. So first of all, this is was it the yellow version? Because the Rio Grande had done it first, and now it's been republished by Yellow, the Super Meeple version or whatever. And it is cool because each player have their own like pyramids, and they're like going different shape, but the the American or Southern American pyramid style, not like Egypt pyramids. But then you have like these buildings that you're going to be adding to the tile or the map. I can talk. So you'll be adding them to the map, and then there's like 1, 2, 3, or 4, and they're taller. But like these look like aged stones. Like they look amazing. They're so clunky and just so satisfying looking. And in a 2-player game, you have a neutral color that gets placed around the tile that just kind of clutters it a bit, so it's not too open. And then on your turn, you have 6 actions, and depending on the 6 actions, what you can do. You can spend an action to move your, what is it called, like Pili Mexica around. So you can move them 1 space, it costs 1 action. Move them onto a bridge, it costs 1 action. To build a bridge, it costs 1 action. To build a pyramid, if it's a 1 value pyramid, it's 1. If it's a 2 value, it's 2. 3 for 3 and 4 for 4 and so on. If you want to teleport from one location to another location, that's going to cost you 5 action out of your 6 action. We're like, why would you ever do that? And we ended up having to teleport all the time. So you will maybe have to. But it's an area control game because you're placing these, because to place a water tile costs 1 action as well. And you have these tiles that have goals that the emperor is demanding that this big island be divided into these different sections. And so be like, okay, so this one is for 10. So you need to create a section of 10 and you break it up with the water. And when you have that section divided up, you can create like kind of, can't remember what it's called, but you kind of create the foundation of this region. And one that's a region, it can never be broken up again, so you can never add water tiles to it. But you can add your pyramid tiles, because whoever has the most control in that is going to score at the end of each era. So this is an area control game. Like and then at first I'm starting to break up my section, and then Keith goes in there and he breaks them up into these useless tiny little chunks. I'm like, what are you doing? So he was like, that was so useless again. And then we did kind of end up running out of land a little bit. So like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But, and then like towards the end, like you just go and visit like the locations that had already been created, and you just add your own pyramids to it so that you increase your control in that region so you can score it, right? It is so satisfying. I really, really like this one. And
that's your copy, right? You have one.
That's my own copy. Yeah. And I just realized something, and I'll tell you later. But yeah, that was the game that I played yesterday in Mexica.
Oh, it's on this list, maybe?
Yes! Oh my god, I was like, I should have picked something else. What did I just do? I was like, oh no. So I'm not going to tell you where.
I did that one time too, and then I was like, oh shoot. I'm going to be talking about it anyway.
Man, well, what I talk about is going to be quick because I just went on and on and on about it. But yeah, cool. All right. So before I mess it up any more, let's get started with our list. So we're doing our top 9 games that have been published between 2000 and 2005.
Yes. And
so
there was a decent amount. I just
you said you had about 20.
Special, honorable mention.
Oh, do you? Okay.
No thanks might end up on your list.
Oh, nice.
I do love this game. Don't get it to the table all that much anymore, but it used to be kind of our camping game we play with the kids, but it's an awesome one. But my number 9 is Coloretto, and this one is made in 2003 by Michael Shashat. I don't know if I actually spelt that right, but it's Shacht, I think. Now, this one is has been remade into different games, and I got to think of the most recent. Oh, the most recent one is called Triqueta, which I'm sure I'll talk about at some point. But this one is really neat. It's just a card game that is using all these geckos, and they all have different colors. So what you do is, depending on the player count, however many people you play with, you will have that many columns or rows. I guess you could put them in columns or rows. And all you do in your turn is you pull a card off the deck and you put it into one of the columns. And then once the game is flowing, you can, on your turn, then choose to just grab one of the columns instead of picking up a card and putting it down. Now, what you're doing is you're doing a definite set collection, but the way you set collect is there's a couple different scoring cards, but the main basic one is you score the top 3 set collections you have, you'll get high points for. Like if you get to like a 6, I think it is 6 of them, and then after that you're going to start getting negative points. So you only want to collect so many of one color. You don't want to have a whole bunch of colors, because then you start getting lower and negative points. Now, so it's neat because sometimes you're pulling like taking a column that has a card you really need, because you really need that to get to like 6 or 7. I can't remember what the sweet spot is. It's like, it depends because there's different scoring, but for the base one, you need that one specific card, but along with it comes this card that you don't even have that color yet, and now it's going to give you a negative, but that other one is going to give you like an extra 6 points. So you have to make these hard decisions where, do I take that column, or do I risk this other column by just pulling out a card? Maybe this will work better, and then, oh no, it's terrible, now this column is worse, and somebody's going to take that column on their next turn. So it's really just a really cool twist on set collection. The other scoring cards you can use are like almost a reverse of that, where you want to have, like, you get to a point where you're like, oh, I want this amount of cards, and then as you go back down, or you can go like, now I'm not explaining it well, but it's just like a completely different way to score. So it can change the game up really neatly. And it is a favorite of a lot of content creators. They love this game. And I remember thinking, really, what's the big deal about this game? So I bought it. And I really do like it. It's it kind of is in the same category as like Arboretum to me, not for the difficulty, but for the decision making, because it's like, you're not going to ever get a perfect thing. It's like, what is the lesser, like, what is the lesser evil that I'm grabbing here? Because I'm definitely going to lose some points, but I have this Joker card and it can be anything. So it's a really neat game. You can play it on BGA for free.
Nice.
And that's Coloretto, my number 9.
Perfect. My number 9 is one of those board game staples that probably everybody should have in their collection, and that's Carcassonne. Carcassonne was created in 2000, so it just sneaked in this list. Created by Klaus Jürgen Reed, and it's a tile laying game. So what's really cool about it is you start with nothing on the table. So setup is like nothing. You just, okay, here's a pile of tile, let's get started. And you start adding a tile and then adding onto it. And then as you add on, you have to match what is on those tiles. So if it's a street and you're adding a street, you can't have a street go into an empty field or into, like, it has to connect to the street. So you're building this whole map as you're playing, and then you're adding some meeples onto the map to kind of take control of certain aspect of this map that you're creating. So if you have building or street or road, you're going to put a meeple on it, and you're like a highway robber, and you get to score that road once it's complete. And so when it goes from like the end of the road or subdivision to or not a subdivision, but there's a word for that.
Oh, the crossroads kind of
Yeah, like, so when it comes to what is it called? That's going to bug me now. But when it comes to an end, right? Or intersection, that's the word.
Oh, intersection.
Yes, jeez. So, and then once it ends the road, then you take your meeple back and you count every tile on that road. So you got to keep that in mind, because sometimes your meeple are going to be locked or stuck on this map until it completes, and then you may run out of meeple and you can't keep adding. So you'll want to start scoring them back so they can come back and you can place them and score other things as well. Except for farmers, because farmers, you score the fields, and in the field you score every completed city or town that there are in that particular field. And the farmer never comes back until the end of the game. So you don't want to dedicate too many farmers, because those are wrapped up. As well as the monasteries, because sometimes you may never complete the monastery, because you need to put a tile all the way around to be able to get those people back. But it is just so neat and satisfying how the game is going to develop, and how you're building this whole map and what you have at the end when it started with just a few tiles. It is just a neat, satisfying game to play. I think everybody who plays it really enjoys it, and it's one that's so easy to teach, yet so, I don't know, like, you have interesting decisions to make, like, it's involving, you're involved with the game as you play. And that's my number 9, Carcassonne.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. It's a puzzle lover's dream, I think. All right, my number 8 is Ingenious, made in 2004 by Rainer Knizia. Now, this one is There's several different versions of it, different types of copies. I have a plastic tile version. I would like to have like an acrylic tile version of
Oh,
this,
that would
but
be cool.
because it's
Yeah.
such a good game. So my version is like a plastic board. No, it's probably just like a normal game board, but and then it's a big hexagon type of grid on there. And depending on the player count, you will use a smaller section of it, and the smaller if it's less. But if you have a full player count of 4, you use the whole thing. And so you have these little tiles, and they're like, I think, a double hexagon tiles, basically, and they all have different symbols on them. Some might have 2 of the same symbol. And so all you're doing is placing a tile on the board on your turn, and then you're scoring it. And so how you score it is if you match one of your symbols to another one, you're going to count up how many are connected to it of that same type of symbol. And it's quite interesting because like you can have a symbol connecting to it in multiple ways from that hexagon.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just depends how you can, get the maximum scoring, because you score each time you place it. Sometimes I think you might even play something and you don't score. And I'm not sure if you can play something without connecting. I think maybe then you have to draw a tile if you can't play one. But it's neat because on the edge of the board, I think they have a base one, so you can always start out one, like with some points. And then sometimes you'll get these double tiles, and it's cool because then you can place that down and it's connected in several ways. But the neat thing is, as you get points, you move up these little tracks on your little player board. And if you ever reach the end of it, then you get another turn, which is very few and far between, because you like the more extra turns you get, the more points you're obviously going to get than everybody else. And I believe the game ends when nobody else can place a tile, and then you count up the score. Is neat because it doesn't matter how far you've got it, your score is your lowest one. So whatever your slowest little track is, that's your score. So you don't want to just like move up a bunch on certain ones. You do to get that extra turn, but you want to try to get them moved up evenly so that you can have a good score. It's such a simple concept, but I find with a lot of his games, it's like he has just a simple concept in his head, but the strategy in it is so deep, and to figure out like what to do, like I could do so many things here. Is this better for me later? Like it's such a cool game. And at first when I bought it, I'm like, this game looks kind of like trash because it's just these plastic pieces, but it's a really cool abstract strategy game. And that's my number 8, Ingenious.
Yes, Ingenious is really good. My number 8 is a game that grew on me. The first time I played it, I didn't like it at all, and we packed it up and said, let's never touch this again. And I didn't for years. And then I played it again. I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is good. And that's Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico was published in 2002 by Andrews Seyfarth. And it's one of those where you're like, and this was like the first time I came across this mechanism, and I see it a lot in like Tiny Epic games as well, whereas like I pick the action and I do the action, and then everybody else gets to do that action as well. But because I picked it, I get a little bit extra. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, but now that action's been used up, so then the next person has to pick an action of what's left. And then he does that action, gets a little bit extra, and then everybody else gets to do a version of that action. And it's just kind of like the first time, as I mentioned, we played it. I was like, okay, I do this, and okay, you do it, and then you do it, and you do it. And I was like, I don't get it. And I was like, okay, let's just pack it up. So, but it is kind of like interesting because you really get into like, okay, I really want to do this one, but I want to do the big action, so I really hope nobody touches it. Or then you'll activate action. It's like, oh man, I really didn't want to do that right now. Now I have to do it. But like, and it's very interesting. But then with this one, you're kind of building your plantation so that you have more resources, and you'll be using those resources to acquire buildings and different tiles. Now this is a beige game. It's not a big game that you look at like, wow, it's so pretty. It's not a pretty game, but it is a satisfying game, and it's kind of neat with the decisions you got to do, and then how you have to kind of handle the decision that's been made for you. And it just makes this game really interesting. I really enjoy it. I know it's been republished the last few years. I think it's had a few republished of this one, but I don't know if the look has changed that much.
So they did an anniversary edition,
right?
Quite a few years ago, which was like had metal coins, and it's really tough to find. And
I think like little wooden boats for the.
I'm not sure about that, but then they've redone it recently in the last few years as under a different name with different theme almost that it's so colonial, colonialism.
Yeah.
But now they are going to redo it. Awakened Realms is redoing it with minis, just like they did Castles of Burgundy.
Oh,
so it's
really?
Beautiful, yes.
Nice.
I have to back that one.
Nice. Yeah, because it's just a really good game. Yeah, like the gameplay is really good, so it'd be neat to see a pretty version of it. But yeah, so that's my number 8, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, good call. I've only played it a couple times, but I did like it. I had been waiting to get like that newer version with the new theme, but then I've heard things that it's not the same game, it's not as good. So I might have to back this new one. We shall see.
Yeah.
Good choice. All right. My number 7 is a party game, and this one's called The Game of Things, made in 2002 by Tom Quinn, Ted Quinn, and Mark Sherry. Now, this one is one of those games, too, where it's like literally the easiest concept, and how is this even fun? But you pull out these cards, and it'll just say something like, like so random. I have 2 different versions. There's a adult version one. So I'm trying to not think of one from that one, but it might just be like something you would say in front of the queen or something, just something silly. And so you write these things down, and then and there's always one person who isn't playing that round,
right?
And you hand them all the little papers, and they mix them up so they don't know who they came from. And then they look at them all, and they're like, you just have to guess which of the people around the table wrote that. And so of course you're trying to be inconspicuous and not put something that you would specifically say, because it would be obvious. So you kind of have to deduce, okay, well, who's like being like the goofiest with this, like it's silly. And some of the things that you have to write down are hilarious. And so the funny part of it is when 2 people have the same answer and they're like way out there. And you're like, how did you both think of something so stupid? But it's so funny. And this was one of the games I know we were playing, and my dad was like, oh, I'm not playing any games. And he was kind of listening on. He's like, oh, I want in on this one. And he wanted to get in because he thought he could guess who was saying stuff. And I think how it works is the person who has them, they get to start guessing. They can be like, okay, definitely Mel said this. And if you're right, I get to keep going. And you get more points for it. And if I was wrong, then it's done, and it's the player beside me who gets to start guessing. And so it just goes around the table till everyone has been guessed. And then if you can guess everybody, you get like a whole bunch of points. But it's really not about points in this game. It's just about the silly things you write down, because some of them are so funny. And I never thought this game would be good. I'd seen it on shelves for years and years, and I read the back, and I'm like, this sounds like a nothing game. You're just writing down answers. But it is hilarious. And that's my number 7, The Game of Things.
Yes, that one is so good. And I've played this one with my family quite a bit. And it's funny because the kids then start answering as if they were Jerome. So I'm going to put this because this is what Jerome would say. And then they're trying to trick everybody that way. And it is very entertaining. It's quite a fun game for sure. Yeah. Nice. Great pick.
You can get like a little travel pack. You can make up questions and just
of course. Yeah.
Or you can get the game of nasty things. That's what the
is it? Yeah, I have the game of things. And it comes like in a wooden box, and super neat. Nice box. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, my number 7 is a crossover with you, and then I double checked because your honorable mention was my number 11.
Oh, okay.
No thanks. So my number 7 is a crossover. Do you know which one it is?
Ingenious.
Yeah, it is. Ingenious is just so good. Oh my god, this game is neat. And it looks cool as you're adding all these colorful tiles on the board and how it grows. Now, I have Ingenious, and then I have, like, a different, smaller version of Ingenious that has, like, a dice version, a card version, and, like, another tile version. So I have that as well. Plus, I got Axio lately, which I think is, like, a reskin of Ingenious. But it is just
the same as Iota? I have Iota, which is like a box this tiny.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Similar. Oh, they're different?
Because I have that one as well, except I have the French version, so they call it Quattro, which is super fun. But yeah, so Ingenious is just so cool. And it's so neat how you're adding all these tiles, but you really got to try to make you spread even because the lowest score is your score. Every time we played this one, I quite enjoy it. I've played it at multiple player count, like the 2 players, 3 players. Like, it's just one that appeals, and that's my number 7.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's our first crossover. I feel like we're gonna have a couple more for sure. My next one is another kind of party game, and this is Tumbling Dice, made in 2004 by Carrie Grayson, Randy Nash, and Rick Seward. Now, this one is another one that I had seen, like, on the Dice Tower, them play it, whatever, and I thought, well, they're just rolling dice on this board. I don't know, is this really fun? And so every year for Christmas, I always get a game for the family, and it's usually some sort of dexterity type game or a game where, like, a lot of people can play it. And so this was the one I got this year. And it is really fun. And my brother, he's like, I'm going to make a different version of this with, like, ramps and all these different things to bounce off the back. And I'm like, okay, cool, go at it. But it is really fun. And all it is this, like, 3-tiered board that you stand back and you have, I think you have 4 dice and you roll 1 at a time. And you're trying to get this onto the last platform because that has the highest points. I think it's a 4 multiplier. And so if you can get a 6 there, well, that's 24 points, right? The only problem is you throw 1 dice, then the next person throws a dice, and they could literally just try to knock you off. I mean, they could also want to try and get points for themselves, but you play rounds. Like, I think we go up to 200, or you can go up to whatever, but if you're in the lead, everyone's trying to get your dice off the board. So it just becomes like a competition that way, where it's like, do I defend or do I just try to get points and hope nobody gets my dice knocked off? We played it with, I think, 9 of us, or maybe it was 10. And the board is just crowded, but it's so fun because some of them will stay on there. And sometimes you knock somebody into the 4 multiplier and you're like, oh no, what did I just do? But it's a really neat game, and you could use, like, D10s, you could use D20s. We always gave the person who got all their dice knocked off first, we gave them a D10. They got to at least roll that so that there was a chance. But so you can just add in whatever, but it's a neat game. And that's my number 6, Tumbling Dice.
Very nice. My number 6 is a game that was created in 2004 by Friedman Freeze, and that is Power Grid. So Power Grid is a really neat game where you're like a power company. You're creating electricity, trying to provide power to these different cities on the map. So you have the map aspect of it where you're trying to kind of be able to grow your business by supplying cities to these different locations. So you need to generate enough power in order to do that. Now, this one also has a really neat bidding mechanism to it. And I think this might have been the first time where I saw a game where that had, like, the play order changed as you play in the same round. So if you're the first one to be able to go and bid on what you want to bid on, and you'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to bid on this, and then you kind of end up with some sort of power generating building of some sort. And then there's different fuel that you will require for them to be able to produce energy. Maybe it's coal. Maybe it's, I think eventually it's like plutonium for a nuclear power plant. Or you have forget what the other one I think is like oil. And then there's also green energy where they're self-sustainable, so you don't actually have to fuel it for it to generate. It'll just start generating. So those are really exciting when you start seeing them. But not only do you have to bid on the building and acquire these buildings, you also have to then go and purchase the fuel that is required to power these buildings and generate this power. And at first you have so much coal that it's the cheapest thing available because so much get added every round. But as you buy more and more, it kind of depletes the resources, and as you're depleting it, the price goes up as well. And then you store where there's lots of coal, but then at the end, the other resources will start to kind of fill in, and they'll become where they're a viable fuel option that makes sense money-wise, because you have to generate the electricity. You get money from that, and that's the money that you have to be able to purchase more power plant and be able to purchase the fuel that you need to be able to generate all this power. And then at the same time, you're building and stretching across the map, and then you will get in each other's way and block each other out. It's like, oh man, I wanted to go there. What did you go there for? And it's just a really interesting, satisfying game to play. Every time I've played this one, it went over really well. This is a game that still has like a paper money, but it feels more like, it's not quite paper, but so as far as paper money goes, yeah, like it's pretty good quality for it, but yeah, it's just one that's been neat. Every time we've played it, it's been enjoyable, and that's my number 6, Power Grid.
I remember playing it like way back at the cafe, and I remember like my heart racing as I'm playing it because there's always things like, this has to work out for me to get that. If someone buys that, that's not going to work. But I will definitely have to try it again. I haven't. I did like it then. I didn't sometimes like who we were playing with. They were very not fun to play with. But
yeah.
And I know Cherry hates this game, but I'm like, I feel like it wasn't. It was because we were playing with.
Could have been the players, not the game.
Yeah, they just made it nasty. But no, definitely have to try it again because it's a very cool design. Awesome. All right. Well, my number 5 is one of the big 3, and that's Ticket to Ride, made in 2004 by Ellen R. Moon.
Nice.
Now, I just put the base Ticket to Ride. I like all the variety of the expansions. I have most of them. I still need I think it's the Asian one where you can play cooperatively or team.
Cool.
No, maybe it's team versus team. You can play on that. Haven't got that one, but I have almost all the other big board expansions. I don't have all the little game ones, but
yeah,
I do love all the variety in it. And I know I had started collecting these when I discovered my family really liked this game. So as soon as I did, then it was like, I must have all of them. Because at least if they like it, I need a variety. So I need to have like different games if they want to play this all the time. Because I have discovered that, yeah, I don't like the same game all the time. I'll play it, very rarely will we play it a few times, but usually good after a few times, unless it's a campaign game. Then I like to carry on and play something different and then come back to it always. So that's how I can rationalize keeping all these games because of the variety. But Ticket to Ride is so neat. It's such a simple concept. You are collecting cards in order to put out train routes. So, you have, everyone probably knows how to play this, but you have these cards with colors on them. And once you get the amount of colors that you need for a certain route, then you can place your trains on that route, and you're trying to make these big connections from different cities to cities of these cards that you've started with. Now, what I love about this game is you start with the option of, I think, 3 or 4 cards, and you have to take at least 2. So I always try to take the 2 long ones, as long as they kind of connect to each other a bit. And then I work on those. I'll connect all those, and then after I'll grab more cards and hope that they have, like, they're within those routes already, because then they're already done and I don't have to work on them. And sometimes I get really lucky and I'll literally pull 20 cards and they've all completed, not at once, but like you pull 3 and you have to keep one of them, and I look, oh, all 3 of these are completed already. Next turn, grab
Oh,
3
nice,
more.
yeah.
Oh, 2 of these are completed. This one, I only need to get this little root connected. And sometimes it really works, and it feels unfair almost when that happens, because it's like I'm not doing anything, but these cards are just free. But the variety in the games, some of them are so neat. They like completely change the game or add like stocks or different things, and it's always going to be a classic. I think the Europe version of it is different. It adds like tunnels and stuff like that, and it's just neat
stations,
how they'll add stations. They add just a little touch of something different to make it feel different. But I'll always have Ticket to Ride, and that's my number 5.
Nice. That's a crossover with my number 10. So just missed
really?
my list. Yeah. Very nice. So my number 5 is also a crossover with myself. That's Mexica.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just talked it on and on about it because we just played it yesterday. Now, I did this list weeks ago. So my list has been ready for a couple of weeks. I just played Mexica. I wonder if I enjoyed it so much. The gameplay of it is just so satisfying when you play it that I wonder if I'd made my list now, if it would be even higher than number 5.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in my number 5 position now, so it's published in 2002. And I think I said it was a Reiner Knizia game, but it's not. It's a Michael Kiesling and Wolfgang Kramer game.
Right, yeah. I didn't hear you say
yeah,
Reiner.
So, but yeah, no, super satisfying, such a neat game. And the whole time I'm playing, you're it's just you're almost giddy with the gameplay, trying to scheme your way into getting more points, and so satisfying. So that's my number 5, Mexica.
Awesome. All right, my number 4 is Yinsh, made in 2003 by Chris Byrne. Now, this is part of the GIFT series, so these are the 2-player only abstract strategy games, and this was my favorite of the bunch. And what it is the boards are all very simple. They're different types of grids, and usually you start with pieces on the board. With this one, you each start with 5 rings on the board. So there's one person is black, the other person is white, and you just place these rings all out on the board strategically or just random. It doesn't really matter. And then on your turn, you take one of the rings and you put one of your discs in the middle of it with your color, and then you move that ring. You'll jump one or more different discs. Now, whatever ones you jump, they are going to flip over to the opposite color. So, and I mean, I could be jumping over 4 discs. 2 of them are white and 2 of them are black. Well, they're going to both flip to the other side. So it might not be helpful, because what you're trying to do is get 5 discs of your color in a row. And then when you do that, you will take one of your rings off and retire it. And as soon as you can retire 3 of the rings, you've won the game. It sounds very simple. The rules are very simple, but the strategy is tough, because sometimes you're setting yourself up for this big thing, and then all of a sudden they crisscross it with one of theirs and flip, the one that you really needed to be your color. And then you'll have 2 your color and 1 their color. Now, how am I going to get these all the same? So it's really a neat game. And if you ever were wanted to try out any games from the gift series, I would say this should be the first one, because it's so cool. That's my number 4, Yinsh.
Nice. My number 4 is one that I played at Gobfest. And I now own this one. I used to only own the card version of it. And I purchased it secondhand, and it came with a bunch of extra maps. And this one was published in 2005 by Glenn Drover and Martin Wallace, and it's Railways of the World. And this game is just, it's just so satisfying. I just really like playing it. So, because you're building your route, but you also have to pick up and deliver. So that's kind of the main part of what's involved in this game. Plus, you don't have money to start, so you're going to have to obtain bonds in order to be able to have some money to get started with things. And everybody starts with a level 1 engine. And that means if that's what your engine is, or your locomotive, you can only go from one city to one city. You can only do one little stretch there. You can't go further than that. Now, if you reach level 2, you can go from like 2 cities away. If you get level 3, you can go 3 cities away. But to do those updates, going to cost money as well. So ideally, you want to try to start so that you can do small little deliveries, because every time you deliver goods, because each location has like 3 colored cubes on it, and you need to take those cubes and deliver them to another city that has that color in the outer ring of the city. That shows like this city is accepting black goods. So you want to try to find the black cubes and deliver them. So you need to build your train route in order to be able to do that, and then deliver it there, and then you've done the delivery. So your income would go up by 1 for every stretch of railroad that you've traveled. And now you start making a little bit of income, but you're going to need to build more track, and you're going to need to go through different terrains, because you can build wherever you want to go and connect through whatever you want. But if you're going through mountains, that's going to cost more money to build. Or if you're going through water, that's going to cost more money as well. So the routes that you pick where you're going to go is going to affect your cost of everything. And then at some point, you might not be able to reach the city you want, but somebody else built that road. So you can still utilize their line, but they're going to get part of that income because you've gone through their railroad as well. And it's just, I love it. I love this game. There's just something about it. The first time I played it was the card version, which kind of was so satisfying. The map version is even better. I just really like this one. I've played it just a month or so ago, maybe now, and it was so good that I'm so glad I own this one now. So that's my number 4, Railways of the World.
Yeah, this one I've got to try too. It looks interesting. And you said the designers were Martin Wallace and Ted Alspach?
No, Martin Wallace and Glenn Drover.
Oh, Glenn Drover. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would have never thought those two designed a game together.
Cool. It's a good one too.
Yeah. All right. My number 3 is a crossover.
Oh.
Can you guess which one it would be?
Puerto Rico.
Nope. It's Carcassonne.
Oh yeah. Okay, there we go.
I love Carcassonne.
I thought, you know what? I thought Carcassonne would be higher for you.
Yeah. I thought so too, but wait till you see the other two. No, this one, I do love this game, and I have loved it ever since I played it. I can't find other people who love it. There's a few, and when I find them, I'm like, let's play this, because it's such a cool game, and it's literally no setup. You pull out the box,
right?
And
you're just
then
good
you
to
each
go.
grab a tile, and you start going, and it's just so satisfying connecting all the little roads and cities and everything. And I have a whole bunch, almost all of the little mini expansions that go with it, and I've tried to play one with almost all of them. It gets a little confusing, but it's still so neat. There's some that like are must haves that you have to use those. You have to play with these ones, like the trader, because it'll give you an extra turn every time you build on that route the trader is on or whatever. But there's like the dragon and the princess is really neat, because when you activate this dragon, then you get to move him, and you can like move him towards other people's meeples, because then he eats them. But you will move him. You get to move him 2 spots, I think, and then another person gets to move him. So you can move him towards them, but then they can take a slight left and push him towards you. It's neat. The trader and builders ones also comes with these little tokens where you're collecting like what is it, like silk and wood or something, and so it adds a set collection part to it. There's just all kinds of things that I have one of the maps. So it's like you have this big map, and you start in one of the areas, and it has like pre-built things on the map that you can connect to. And then there's some neat things on there, and then lots of the banners are already pre-printed on there so that you get those extra points. It's just, they've made it a cool variety for the game. You can like change it up, just play base game, or just add one of the little expansions and then change it up with another one. But it's such a neat game. I love it. And it's my number 3, Carcassonne.
Very nice. My number 3 was gifted to me before I got into the gaming hobby as a Christmas gift. And then I hadn't played it for a really long time. It was just sitting in my cupboard. And then I I played my first modern board game and I was like, okay, I need to play more. What else is out there? So I kind of started dusting off the games that I had in my cupboard, and this was one of the ones that we ended up playing. And after we played it the first time, I was so blown away by it. I called my brother to thank him for the gift right away. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. This gift is amazing. I love it. And he's like, I didn't get you that. And I was like, well, who gifted it to me? So I'm like calling all my family members, like, oh my God, this was so amazing. Like it left such a huge impression. I was so amazed that this game could do this and had never come across anything like it. And that's Betrayal at House on the Hill. So this one was published in 2004, created by Bruce Glasgow. And it was just so neat because you start with the tile, like you start with the foyer of a building. And as you play, you add different tiles and you build this mansion. And as you build the mansion, you'll collect different things. Different items will be collecting, different things will start happening to you. You'll start getting different abilities. And eventually, you'll get omen cards. And every time you get an omen card, you have to roll for the haunt. And at first, there's only one omen card out there, and you roll all your 5 dice or whatever number of dice it is. So as long as you have a higher roll than the omen cards in play, you're good. You keep going. But eventually, it's going to activate the haunt. And depending on which tile and what omen card comes out that activates it, it's going to select a scenario, and that's the scenario you play. So maybe there's a werewolf, maybe there's a vampire. It's kind of one of those bit like of a horror theme, so it's going to be something along that line. And then one of you becomes turns against the rest of the group, and then you become one versus all, and then the Greek team has to hey, this is what we need to do. We need to find the gun, and we've already found it, so that's good. But now we need to find the silver bullet, and then we need to shoot him in the heart. But there's all these bats that could be in the way, or so the scenario will always be different. But you get to your new objective. Well, the portrayer then have their own objective. Okay, well you need to do this, and then if this happens, you win. And now you play the second half of the game with these new rules. It was so neat. I have since got Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is more like a D&D theme. And then I just last week got Scooby-Doo, it's Betrayal at Mystery Mansion. So, and this is another version of this one. It adds 10 different scenarios. I think some gameplay aspect of it is a little bit simplified, and it would make it easier to play along with children if you wanted to. Uh-huh. And also you can pick who the betrayer would be if the person who activates it doesn't really want to be. Because sometimes not everybody's comfortable to just go off and then be against everybody, mostly if they're younger players. So this one is a little bit more lenient on that side, which I ended up doing with the Betrayer of House on the Hill when I was playing with my boys at the time anyways. But love that game. That's my number 3, Betrayal at House on the Hills.
Awesome. I have to play that Betrayal on the House because I had that game way back, and then I never thought I would ever get it to the table, but now I would really like to try it. I'll have to play that in spooky season for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah, it's been around.
Awesome. Well, my number 2 is St. Petersburg, and this was made in 2004, and they did make a second edition in 2014, which is the version I have. I did have the first version, and then I did find this one. It's very hard to find. It's out of print. But you can find the first and second edition on used markets, and they're both really neat. You can play it on BGA as well. Only the first version you can play on there, but it's basically a card game. There is a game board, but it's basically to set the cards down. And so what you're doing is you go through these phases, and there's 4 phases. And on the first phase, you place out all these cards, and they're basically they're workers, but they will give you income. So you have to hire them, and then every round they'll give you income. So you're trying to hire these workers, but if I hire this like fur trader, well, next time I hire a fur trader, he's $1 less. So you kind of want to have a bunch of the same ones because they're cheaper to hire, and then you'll still get all the income from them. And then the next phase, I'm going to say it's called the building phase, where you're building different like cathedrals and whatnot, and they're quite expensive, but they are worth high points. Then the next phase is the aristocrats phase, I think, where you are influencing aristocrat. Maybe that's not the word, but you're influencing these high noble people, and they are also a type of income. Now they could be an income of money or they could be an income of points, and for those ones you want to set collect them, so you want to have completely different ones, because the more unique ones you have, you're going to get big points at the end. But at the beginning you might want to have a bunch of the same because they're cheaper and they give you money, because at the beginning you kind of need money in order to buy all these cards, whereas later on in the game you want higher point ones because you'll score the points every round. Then the last phase is it's kind of a mix of cards, but some of them are cards that can be built over top of other cards, so you can kind of exchange, a building for a higher building and only pay the difference, kind of thing. And it's neat because there's just these 4 phases, and it just depends how many players, but you'll be first in one of those phases every round if you're like in a 4-player, and then it changes up. So it's quite unique because then you go back to the first phase and you do that again and you build up your workers. But sometimes it's tricky because you're like, oh, I'm out of money. Now what am I going to do? I can't buy the workers. So now I just have to get that little income and then wait for next round, but I don't want to spend too much money here. So it's a real like tough decisions about like how much money you're going to spend and when's the best time. Now the second version also adds this little market where it's these cards that have resources on them, and then you have these tracks that you go up with these resources, and it just adds like another whole bit to it, which is really cool. And I'm maybe not explaining this great, but it is a very cool game, and it's just the mechanics in it are so unique. I know you love playing old Euros. I know you would love this one.
Nice.
Try this sometime. I don't know if you own it.
I don't think so.
No.
I think it might be in. Yes, I know. I think he's like, Carla says you need to buy this.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
That's funny he remembered that, because I did. I was like, Val, you're gonna need that one because you like the old Euros. But it's really cool and a total unique game. You can play it on BGA too and try it out there.
Nice.
It's not the same though. It's better in person, I feel.
I think all games are better, yeah.
But some are easily played on BGA, whereas some they don't do it like,
right. Doesn't
justice.
do it full justice,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. But this is a really neat one, and that's
nice.
To St. Petersburg.
Perfect. My number 2 is published in 2003, created by Dirk Henn, and that is Alhambra. So I got this game secondhand. I had heard about it, and I was like, oh, I think this one would be cool. And we ended up playing it, and we're like just partway through the game, and I'm playing it with my brother and my sister. It's like, oh, I can tell this game is going to be amazing. And then they're like, I don't know, I'll reserve judgment. But it was just so cool. And what was cool with this is you're building this, I think it's like Market Square or something, and you're adding these. Well, I guess that's what that is, right? Yeah. Well, so you're adding these tiles, and the tiles will have different colors associated with it. What's really interesting as well is, because on your turn you can purchase a tile or you can collect money. But when you purchase a tile, you're buying it from like a builder, and the builder wants to be paid in their own currency. So you have to have that particular money available in order to purchase those tiles. Now you can't make change, so if you don't have the exact change, you just donate a tip, I guess. But then if you do have the exact change, it gives you special ability or special something you can do. I'm trying to remember.
You get to have another turn.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you get an extra turn. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then you're building up onto your map of what you're adding. And then you also have like the walls, because some of these tiles have like a black wall, and you're creating, because you can't block things out, and then you're putting these strategically, trying to create this whole thing. And then at some point there's going to be a tile that comes up that says, okay, we're scoring. and then you'll score a first time, and you score your wall, and you score the majority of each different colors, and you get points for that, and then you go back and you keep going, and then at some point there'll be another tile say, okay, we're scoring a second time, and then so you want to be kind of a position where, because you don't know when that's going to happen, but you're hoping to score well at that point, and then you're going to keep adding, and then at the end of the game you do a final score. It was so cool. That was the first time I came across that mid-game score that will happen at some point. Nobody knows. And it was just a very satisfying game to play. I really quite enjoyed this one. And that's my number 2, Alhambra.
Well, I have another crossover for my number 1. Can you guess what it is?
Is it Alhambra?
Yeah. I love this game. This was one of my favorites as a beginner gamer when I started. I loved playing this. I wanted everyone to play it with me. I just love the, like you said, that scoring. And the thing is that's neat is you know what is going to be scored in the first phase, and because it's like certain buildings will be worth higher points, so you're trying to get those ones, but well, maybe I should work on the second phase because I know that's coming, maybe I'll get those. And then you also will score your wall. So if you have however long your connected wall is, which it sounds like it would be easy, but some of these tiles have walls on 3 sides, some have them on 2 sides, and in order to get that puzzle where you can connect them and still be able to walk around your Alhambra, because you can't block anything out, like you said. You have to place tiles so that your Alhambra is easily you can walk around it. It's really puzzly, but it's neat. And I have the big box version, so it has like all the silly expansions to it, but there are some really cool ones. One of them is it gives you change, so you pull into this bag and you pull out coins, and whatever the coins have certain colors. So say like I get $3 change, I'll pull out 3 coins, and I might have like a green, a blue, and yellow, and it's perfect because it'll help you get to that exact amount next time you buy a tile or whatever. But there's a bunch of little cool expansions. Some are ridiculous in there, but there's some neat ones.
Nice.
Yeah, it's an awesome tile laying game. Definitely a classic if you don't have Alhambra. I think they even still sell it. I think they might have kickstarted a version a few years ago and then had a second version called something else, but you can find this game, but it's awesome. If you need to try it. And that's my number 1, Alhambra.
Very good pick. My number 1, I'm pretty sure, I don't think you've played, and this is a game that is in my top 10 games now still. Like, it's just such a good game. And this one was published in 2004 by Richard Borg, and this is Memoir 44. And this, I guess, from what I understand, is a reskin of Battle Lore, which is more of a, I guess, Dungeon and Dragon or fantasy theme. But this one is straight up army. You're recreating the battles of Normandy. And then it's really kind of neat because you got the book and it's very historically accurate. It says, okay, this is the date, this is what was happening, and this is where all the troops were, and this was your goal and then the mission, and then you go through the battle, and you're either playing as the Allies or the German, and so you're kind of replaying on one side, and then you go, but then you're limited to the cards that you have, because like during that time, like, communication was tricky. Will you receive the order in time to be able to send the troops where it needed to be for that particular battle? Depends on the cards you have in your hand, right? And then the cards will be, because your board is divided between 3 sections. You got the middle, left, and right, and to be like, okay, on the left flank, if you can control the tanks you have there. Okay, well, great, my tanks are on the right side. I can't, that card is not very useful to me. But you can always utilize it to control any one other unit. It's just not quite as powerful than if you use it the way that it's intended to. But every time I play this one, and this plays quick, probably in half an hour, but you're playing it and it's so satisfying. It's just like such a neat game. And then the board looks great, and then your little components on there looks great, and then you have your card in this little holding tray, and then the whole thing is so satisfying. I love this one. And that is my number 1, Memoir 44.
Awesome. Yeah, 3 crossovers we had.
Yeah, actually it could have been more, but we have. We tend to aim or gear towards different games a little bit too. Yeah. No, it's a great list. I can't believe I talked about Mexica, what I played. Man. And I played a lot lately. I could have picked something else. But yeah, so that was our top 9 games for games that were published between the year 2000 and 2005. Now, next one, we're going to be doing our top 9 games we would recommend instead of Yahtzee. When was the last time you even played Yahtzee?
Oh, I don't know. I can't even. Oh, when my kids were little and we used to camp. We used to camp with another couple, and they literally would play. Well, she would play it with her sister all day when we were at the beach. When we were at the pool, they'd sit and play. So I played it. That was probably the last time I think I played it.
I think I lived in New Brunswick, so it was a long time ago. Yeah. But yeah, it's been quite a while, and there's so many games that kind of mimics that mechanism. That's so be sure to tune in to see which 9 game is going to make it onto that list. But before we call it all quits, Carla, where can we find you?
I'm at on Instagram at boardgamespecialist, all one word, and on Facebook I have a page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. What about you?
So we have a Discord channel. Be sure to check us out on there. We've been very active. Actually, it's really neat. Everybody kind of sharing games they've been playing on there. Yeah. So that's been very satisfying. I gotta say, one thing about Discord is I have no idea who anybody is, because everybody has a nickname, and
I know who a few are, but I won't say.
I have no idea.
You don't know anyone on there?
I barely know who you are on there. So
is it my name on there?
I don't think it's really your name. It's a nickname. I'm pretty sure mine is my actual name. But so I was like, oh yeah. I was like, okay. Oh, who's that person? I was like, I don't know. That and Instagram is really hard to keep track of people. But yeah, so be sure to check out our Discord. We'll have the link down below. I'm also on Instagram as Mel's_boardgame_room. And my Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. And my YouTube channel is Mel's Board Game Room. Did you look up your name? Or were you?
No, I'm trying to find it. I feel like I just posted. Where is it here? Yeah, I'm under Carly Gino. So it's pretty easy.
Well, it's yeah, okay, fine. I'll forgive you on that one. Mine is Melanie. That's easy. But yeah, Carly Gino.
I know 3. I think I know 4 on there, other than us. But
and then BG Potato. I have no idea who that is. Do you?
I think so. Let me see.
But yeah, so because it's not even a picture. It's like an icon that you pick. So yeah, if you want to be incognito, you can really do that there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Be sure to check us out for the next list.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
Bye.